Christianity implements an infinite punishment for a finite crime.
That doesn't disprove it. That's just something you don't like.
It disproves any moral God.
Based off which
Christianity is
standard
based
specifically?
based on the standard that you cannot punish somebody for eternity for a crime that
Right.
is
That's called
finite.
begging the question, right? You're using your conclusion in your premise. It's circular by definition.
No,
The
okay.
reason it's circular is because you say it's immoral for God to punish somebody for a finite crime for eternity. And I asked you, why is that the case? And you say, because it's immoral for God to punish somebody for a finite crime for eternity. That's circular by definition. You're using the conclusion as the premise. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
I'm 47, sir.
All right, bro. Can you disprove Christianity?
Well, I think that I need to get your definition of Christianity. Is it Methodist, Lutheran, Baptist, Pentecostal, Evangelical? Is it Lutheran? Is it Wisconsin Lutheran or Minnesota Lutheran or
Yeah, they all hold to
the
same definition of what Christianity is.
No, they don't.
Yeah, so
Otherwise,
they have differentiating ideas on tertiary events, but they would all consider each other Christian. So a Lutheran wouldn't look at a Baptist and so hold on. A Lutheran wouldn't look at a Baptist and say they're not a Christian, right?
Sure, they would. I grew up in the Wisconsin Evangelical.
Okay, so let's just test that theory. In the chat, guys, can you, if anybody who's willing, can you name your denomination? We have a Catholic, we have Orthodox, we have Evangelical, Orthodox, Baptist, Orthodox, Atheist, Catholic, Pentecostal, Lutheran, Westboro Baptist, Orthodox Methodist, Greek Orthodox, Reformed Baptist, Baptist, Orthodox, Coptic, Orthodox. Okay, out of the ones that I named, Pentecostal, Baptist, out of the ones I named, guys, if you think they are Christian, right, say Christian. If you think they're not Christian, say not Christian. Of any of the ones I named. And you can say not Christian, X specific one, but yes to all the other ones. So if you guys consider those Christian, would you call them a Christian? Okay, they all call them Christian. A couple said not.
No, that's fine. I was trying to wait for you, brother. I'm not trying to be rude.
Yeah. So yeah, they would consider each other Christian.
Okay, except for the Catholic people, right? Because Catholics and Protestants have been at war for years over the fact that God put somebody on earth called the Pope who was the voice of God on earth, and that's not what
they went to war for.
Protestantism did, right?
No, they went to war for the sin of schism. And they still didn't consider Baptists not Christians. Or sorry, not Baptists, Protestants. So like when they went to war, it was because of the sin of schism that was like the Reformation that was like started by Martin Luther. And through that
theses on the door and
through the Reformation, there was the sin of schism, which is the separation of church, and then there was the push to get back into the church, but they never called them not Christian.
All right, that's fair enough. I'll concede that point. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I always get back to is the idea of there's two ideas really. The first is that Christianity implements an infinite punishment for a finite crime.
That doesn't disprove it. That's just something you don't like.
It proves that it's immoral.
According to what
Christianity
standard?
Claims. Wait, can I finish, please?
Yes, that's fine, but you just got to give me the standard on what you're saying it's immoral from.
Okay, the standard is that God says in Christianity that you must obey the laws by keeping them holy.
Mm-hmm.
I can go down the list of all those other things. Okay. I don't want to get too into the weeds with specificity as it pertains to that. But the idea that the Reformation was happening just a few hundred years after the Reformation of Islam.
Okay. Why did you go from hell to the Reformation? Which topic are we on?
Okay. I'm sorry. Let's stick with that. I'm sorry. In Christianity, God is said to be all moral, correct?
So God is all good.
Is morality good?
Yeah, so it depends on like your definitions, right? So for example, there's different types of morality. There's different views. There's like virtue ethics. There's deontology, I think it's called. There is what's it called? Why can't I remember it all? But anyways, there's different versions of ethics that people would call moral, immoral, or they'd say things are amoral, and it's just basically societal.
Okay. So since there are all those systems, how is it that choosing one of those systems can give you an infinite punishment for a finite crime?
Right. None of this disproves Christianity, though. Again,
it disproves any moral God
based off which standard specifically. Like, how are you saying he's immoral based off which standard?
Based on the standard that you cannot punish somebody for eternity for a crime that
right.
is
That's called begging the question, right? You're using your conclusion in your premise. It's circular by definition.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So I asked you.
What I'm saying.
So hold on. I'll explain why it's circular.
Okay.
Yeah. So the reason it's circular is because you say it's immoral for God to punish somebody for a finite crime for eternity. And I asked you, why is that the case? And you say, because it's immoral for God to punish somebody for a finite crime for eternity. That's circular by definition. You're using the conclusion as the premise.
So is there a finite crime that a person can commit where the consequence should be eternal?
Yeah.
Which one?
So the sin of the Holy Spirit, which is the rejection of salvation.
But that only happens when you are a finite creature.
No, it's an ongoing thing.
It's an ongoing thing for you right now until
for everyone
says a funeral dirge over you in a few years.
No, they're still rejecting God in the afterlife. That's the sin. That's why it's eternal, because they can eternally reject God. But again, you're shifting the point. You still haven't. Hold on, you're still shifting. You're still shifting because you haven't given me a standard which to judge this off of to say it's immoral.
Do you have children?
No.
Okay, I do.
Okay.
You don't. So maybe this will miss you a little bit. And
I teach children, so that's what I do for a living.
Okay.
For the majority of my day. I have children that I've had in my life for many years. Yeah.
Awesome. What wrong could they do that you would punish them for the rest of eternity?
Yeah. So again, that's subjective, because I could simply state that if there was a parent, I'll explain why it's subjective, right? I'm going to explain. So let's say that there is a parent out there that decides that, yes, I want to punish my child for eternity because they decided to steal the cookie out of the cookie jar, right? And I'm going to do that. How are you to say it's wrong?
Based on the fact that let's go this way. Based on game theory.
What's that?
Game theory is the idea that you have, and I'll take it to a, sorry, my phone rang, my bad.
It's fine.
Let's do this on a particular game that all of us have played for hundreds of years. There are an infinite number of moves that one can make in a game of chess, correct? Or nearly infinite?
I don't know if that's true. I would honestly, intuitively, I would say no, but possibly, sure.
It is very close to infinite. I have studied chess my entire life. Okay,
I'll take your word for it, but intuitively, I would say no.
Okay, that's fine. But you can look it up. You can Google it while we're talking if you want. I'll give you a second if you want to look it up. The number of moves that you can make in a game of chess are nearly infinite from both the white and the black side. It's like a deck of cards. It's any.
Well, it's not infinite, right? So a deck of cards can be shuffled 52 factorial.
Right.
Which is a huge number. It's not
nobody
infinite.
who's ever, which means 52 factorial means that no one who has ever shuffled a deck of cards has gotten the same result twice, ever.
So I just Googled it. It says in a game of chess, there are over 9 million variations after just 3 moves each, 288 billion different possible positions after 4 moves each, and 318 trillion ways to play just after the first 4 moves. Again, so it's 10 to the power of 120, which is a very high number. Well, so here's something I'm going to grant you. It's not infinite, but 10 to the power of 20 is an extremely high. So that's 10 to 120 zeros, right? Yeah.
Yes. And that's why I said nearly infinite. I didn't know the exact numbers. I haven't looked
But infinite is like a much higher number than 10 to the power of 120.
That's fine.
But that's an important difference, right? Like that's like that's an infinite percentile.
Okay. Irrespective of the number of moves, would you say that there is objectively better ways to play chess within the game?
Well, yeah, if you're playing by a set of standard and set of rules, yeah, but you have to grant the standard and rules first.
Which is what we do with life all the time.
Right, yeah, so yeah, but the game of chess is a subjective game, unless you're just saying chess is the rules of this, so therefore it's objectively. Yeah, I can agree with that, but we've invented the rules of chess, so it's not an objective standard, it's a subjective game.
We've also invented the rules of morality.
Yeah, so that's cool, fine. So you want to say we invented the rules of morality. So let's say if everybody got together and decided to change the rules of chess, would it be a different chess game?
It certainly would, and they've done that, and I don't want to get into a chess conversation.
But would it be different?
It would still maintain a certain number of rules agreed upon that
sure, that's fine, but would it be different? Would it be different? I don't know why it's so difficult for people to answer direct questions I ask.
Certainly, yes, it would be different.
Cool.
Yes.
So if everybody got together and decided morality was different, would morality be different?
Yes, and it has been.
Okay, so if we all collectively agree as a society that it would be okay to punish somebody for eternity for a finite crime, does it now make it a true claim?
What it does is it negates the rules.
But would it make it a true claim? Because your claim is that God is not real because he's either immoral or not real because he punished somebody for infinite amount of time for a finite crime. But if we all collectively got together and decided, you know what, that is just, then now God is no longer immoral.
No, because God doesn't whoa, you can't conflate the two. Because the claim of Christianity is that God is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, and omnibenevolent, correct?
Yeah, so if you're going to argue that if God is real, then it's subjective morality, then you can't argue against a standard because you're saying it's subjective morality. You're shifting the burden from an internal critique to an external critique, and it's not consistent.
Because the God that Christianity proposes is not within our framework.
What does that mean?
In other words, the best example I can give of this is that the only reason that love exists among humanity or this planet in any way, shape, or form is the idea of time, space, and loss. And God has never lost anything. God has never had to worry about...
You're just stating that as if it's a fact and I should grant it. I don't agree with that.
You don't agree that... You don't agree...
I don't agree love has to do with loss.
No.
For example, let's say you have children. Let's say you and your child were granted eternal life. Would you stop loving them?
There would be no need for me to do anything for them.
I'm not asking if you would or would do things for them.
Can I finish my statement, please?
But you're not answering the question. Would you stop loving them?
I am. I'm getting to the answer to the question, and you've interrupted me again.
Well, all you can do is just say for example, you could say yes, I would stop loving them, and then you could explain why. Right. But it seems like you're just trying to predict certain things rather than give the answer.
Not be, the emotion would not be the same because I would not need to protect them. They would be eternal.
Okay. Would you stop loving your children?
I don't know that I would understand the concept of love if there was no time involved. I
didn't say there was no time. I just said
my children.
I didn't say there was no time. I just say there's time, but you're eternal. You exist through all time. You just continue on. Would you stop loving your children?
No. Eternal has nothing to do with time. It's forever. It's eternal.
So can you give me the definition of time?
Wait, now let's just get this clear as well. Eternal means that 1 trillion years from now, my child would still be alive and happy and healthy. And 1 trillion years after that, my child would be happy and healthy. And 1 trillion years after that, my child would be happy and healthy. And they would only be getting started.
Right. So but is there still time?
No.
Okay, so then how is it 1 trillion years?
Because we have to use something that humans can understand as a measurement. And what I just said.
Okay, so then what is time?
What I said was trillion.
Can you give me the definition of time?
I'm sorry?
The definition of time. Can you give me the definition of time?
Moving through space with an idea of what came before and after.
You need to have an idea. So if a rock doesn't exist in time?
No. So
rocks are timeless?
Rocks don't have a concept of time.
I didn't ask if it had a concept of time. Are rocks timeless?
Now you're comparing inanimate objects to conscious creatures?
No, I'm not. You just said something has to have knowledge. I'm not comparing. I did not say rocks are like humans. That'd be a comparison, right? I am simply
No,
stating you made a statement. This is the claim.
Whether or not they experience time.
I didn't say that. I didn't ask if they experience time. I didn't ask if they experience time, bro. You need to listen. You need to listen, right? Don't tell me what I said. Listen to what I'm trying to tell you, right? I didn't say they experience time, right? You made the claim. Time is something moving through space that is aware of the future or the past. Well, correct. A rock moves through space, but it's not aware of the future and past. So based off your statement, rocks are timeless.
Yes.
So rocks are timeless. This is your claim.
I don't know why that's an incredible claim. The Earth has been around for 4 billion years. We have no idea.
So how is the Earth around for 4 billion years if it was timeless?
Because the matter that created it was created by the Big Bang, which we
How did it create it if it was timeless?
I'm sorry?
How did it create it if it was timeless?
I'm not sure that's a valid question.
I agree.
I mean, I know that you're trying to trap me in this because
I'm not trying to trap you.
Astrophysicist, but
I'm not trapping anybody. I'm just asking simple questions, right? You're making claims that I don't hold to be true, and I'm asking you to justify your claims. I'm not moving you any specific direction. I don't have an end goal to the questions I'm asking you.
That's what an argument is. You're trying to move me in a specific direction.
At this point,
that's just intellectually dishonest. I'm trying to move you in a direction too, right?
Bro, people have watched me debate. I have told people when I'm trying to trap them. I've said to people, I am trying to trap you right now. I've done that. Bro, I'm not trying to move you in any specific direction because I'm just trying to comprehend how you think a rock is timeless.
There is no sense, given what we know about the universe, that rock came from nowhere. The atoms and molecules that made it up.
It came from nowhere.
I'm sorry?
I didn't say it came from nowhere. I just want to know how it's timeless. Doesn't matter where it came from.
I'm saying because we don't know where those molecules originated. They are
that doesn't make it timeless.
And billions of years old. Right?
Yes, it doesn't make it timeless. None of that makes anything timeless.
When did time start?
So I would say time started at the Big Bang.
How do you know that?
I don't know for certain. I'd say that's why I said I would say. If I was to say for absolute certainty, I'd say it's this, and this is why we know that. I say there's good reason to believe that it started at the Big Bang, and I think a big reason for that is because the known observable universe came into existence at the Big Bang, and for us to measure time, we need objects in motion, right? And if there's no objects in motion, there's no time. And according to space-time relativity, you cannot have space without time. You cannot have time without space. They work together.
Unless you move fast enough.
If you move fast, it just changes how. Yeah, so it's relative. Time is relative. Yeah, it doesn't change its existence. Doesn't stop it from existing.
So what was? So, wow.
So it's just a very simple question.
I'm sorry. This is not.
Oh, okay. So here, I'll just put it like this: do rocks change?
No.
No, a rock never changes, ever.
I mean, it changes it. Well, you say change, but what do you mean by change?
To be identical to one and then have something happen to it till it's no longer identical to one. So for example, it might chip, it might erode, it might break, it might be painted, it might move position.
Does the molecular structure of the thing that was broken change?
Yes.
So if a meteor falls out of the sky and throws dirt into the air, that dirt changes.
Right. Why are you so difficult with this question? Do rocks change?
I'm not trying to be difficult, sir. I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. I've never watched your page before.
I think you think
get a baseline here.
What I think you're doing is what most people do when they have a conversation with me is you try to assume what I'm arguing and you argue my assumptions instead of just arguing what I'm arguing. Right? I just want to know, does a rock change? Like it's a simple concept, right? Because if a rock changes, then it experiences time. If it doesn't change, then it doesn't experience time.
No, it doesn't have to experience time. It just has to experience the interaction with something else in its environment.
If it interacts with something else, it experiences time.
A rock can't experience anything.
Well, a rock is not experiencing, but to the extent of experience, like something is happening, sure, yeah. It's in time. But if you're talking about experiencing the conscious experience, no.
Only if we can view it. if it happens
all
without
right,
a
bro.
viewer,
I gotta move on, but I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being cordial.
No, and thank you for being patient with me, man. I really appreciate you too.
All right, man. God bless.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. If you want to watch more, you can click one of these and you can keep watching.